Hey, what's going on, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you folks out there. And shout out to everyone tuning in. Your friend Dean Kulaweera here every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. I'm right here to help you folks out with job search tips, advice, strategies, resume tips, interview tips. I cover a whole wide array of topics related to job searching, job interviewing, and all that good stuff. All right. So hope you're able to get great information out of today's session. And if this is your first time tuning in, appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you mark your calendars, by the way. So every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, I'm right here. So feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from. And of course, feel free to start dropping in any of those questions you folks have that are job search related, right? And pretty much anything goes, folks. Any questions regarding resumes, interview tips, salary negotiation tips, what else? How to deal with recruiters? You're having certain frustrations with recruiters. Anything goes, right? The question does not have to be related to today's topic, which, by the way, is this. I'm going to be speaking about going beyond solely and only talking about your past accomplishments at job interviews. Now, I'm not saying don't talk about your past accomplishments. It's great if you're doing that. But what I'm going to talk about today is how you want to leverage that and take that a step further and talk about another area that you should be talking about. Right. So before we get into that, again, quick shout out to everyone tuning in on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So I'm going live on all three platforms. And if you wanna follow me on my other social channels, I'll drop another link shortly. But before we get started, make sure you hit like, and again, make sure you comment any questions you have, and feel free to share today's session with anyone in your network that might benefit from today's segment that is actively interviewing and going for interviews. I'm pretty sure that they'll be able to benefit from today's segment. All right. And if you want to follow me on all my other social channels, or if you want to check out where else I am posting stuff, feel free to check out or go to my Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter, linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter. I also post on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, and some other platforms I've never even heard about. But in any case, if you're more of an audio person, you can check out the some of the stuff I post on my podcast on those platforms as well. Also, make sure you subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter. Every week, I release a new segment where I cover various topics related to recruitment and hiring and recruiting, as well as for you job seekers out there as well. So appreciate everyone who has subscribed so far already. Really appreciate your feedback and support and the likes and all that stuff. So if you haven't subscribed already, just go to my LinkedIn profile, or you can check out the link at my Linktree page. But if not, after the segment is finished, go to my LinkedIn profile, scroll down to the featured section, and my LinkedIn article should be in one of those featured posts, and then just go there and hit subscribe, and you should be getting the notification when I release a new newsletter edition. Today's segment is sponsored by Tech Recruiters 360, which is my recruitment business. So if you're an organization that is looking for tech talent anywhere in Canada, or if you're an IT professional in Canada looking for your next career opportunity, make sure you reach out to me for more information on how I can help you. I have experience recruiting for the IT sector for over 8 years here in mostly in the Greater Toronto area. But look, if you're looking for anything across Canada, or if you're an organization looking for people across Canada, I'm your guy. Feel free to reach out and for more information about how I can personally assist you. Today's segment is also brought to you by DK Global Talent. and my course, Applying to Jobs Online 101. If you're struggling with getting responses to your job applications, my 3-hour course, it's a 3-hour course, lifetime access. It'll teach you how to generate more responses to your applications, which you can then convert into interviews. And look, it's the biggest challenge I hear from people is not that they're not talented, not that they're lacking in ability or potential, but simply that they're applying to jobs and not getting any responses. So for more information about that, feel free to go to dkglobaltalent.com/get responses, dkglobaltalent.com/get responses. So again, before I get into, and I'm going to get into today's topic shortly, folks, but feel free to start putting your questions in the comments shortly. Let's see here. We got some comments here. We got Maha Saeed in the house from Toronto. How are you doing today? I'm doing great, Maha. Thanks so much for asking. Hope you're doing great as well, my friend, and appreciate you tuning in and appreciate your comment, and hope you get great value out of today's segment, Maha. We got Besali in the house. Besali says, hi, Dean. Hey, Besali. Good to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got Mahesh in the house. Mahesh Gurunath, all the way from Mumbai, India. Wow, all the way from Mumbai. Appreciate you tuning in, Mahesh, and hope you get a lot of value out of today's segment as well. And Besali says, I'm from Toronto. How to negotiate salary and interview? Okay, great question, Besali. I'm going to get to your question after I cover today's topic. So just hang tight and stick around. I'm going to get to your questions when I get into the Q&A part, which I do after I finish today's topic, all right? And by the way, that goes for the rest of you. Feel free to, folks, don't be shy. Feel free to, just put the questions in the comments, and I'm going to get into into your questions soon as I finish discussing today's topic, all right, which is going beyond talking about your past accomplishments. Now, most of you are probably doing this correctly. You're talking about your past projects, your past achievements, maybe, certain challenges you've overcome in the past. You're basically, you're talking about your, what you've done at your current employer or recent employers and your past employers, right? Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying don't do that. Keep doing that. That is excellent. That is great. If you're doing that confidently, you're doing that effectively, that is great. What I'm talking about today is don't just talk about that. Do not just talk about your past accomplishments, folks, right? This is the mistake some of you are making is you're 100% only talking about, okay, this is what I did at this company. This is what I did at, I'm doing right now in my current company. This is what I did at that company from a year ago and 2 years ago and 10 years ago. You're only doing that, right? And that is only part of the equation of successfully interviewing. The other part is, and what I'm going to be covering today is you have to talk about, and by the way, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down, circle it, underline it, because it's very important. Don't just talk about past accomplishments, but also talk about future potential. Future potential, folks, that is extremely, extremely important. You have to be talking about your potential. You got to make the hiring team, you got to make them visualize their future with you, right? With you, because it's up to you to make them visualize that and really see what you can do for them at their organization, right? That is kind of that. But what I said just now is basically the summary of today's session, right? So again, don't just 100% focus on past accomplishments, past achievements. Yes, that's important. But the missing component, what some of you are missing is you got to tie that into the organization that you're interviewing with. And the problem with not doing this yourself is you're making them do this on their own. And you don't have control over that, right? You do not have control over someone else's perception of you and how you're going to fit into their organization, how you're going to help them, what you're going to do, how you're going to help them with their problems, their challenges, their projects, and blah, blah, blah. And here and there, certainly, you definitely can get lucky, and they're going to form those conclusions on their own. They're going to, tie those strings together, and they're going to figure it out for their own in terms of what you can do for them. But I'd rather you folks play an active role in influencing this perception. So again, future potential. You got to communicate your future potential with the organization that you're interviewing with. That's how you're going to make them see all these great, amazing things that you can potentially do with them and for them, right? Being a potential team member, if they want to move ahead with you and hire you. So 3 tips in regards to this, and I'm gonna get into your questions shortly after, folks. So feel free to, if you have any questions about this particular topic or any other topic job search related, feel free to start dropping them in the comments right now, and I'm gonna get into your questions shortly. All right, but I just want to share 3 tips with you in regards to this, focusing on your future potential, because it's so important, right? So tip number 1 is, look, you can't talk about your future potential if you're not taking steps in understanding the hiring need, the motivations, the hiring need, the hiring motivation, challenges, problems, issues that the company is experiencing right now. Like if you're not, and you probably heard me talk about this very frequently. If you've been following me for a while, you hear me talk about understanding the hiring need and the hiring motivation. I talk about it like all the time, right? And this is so important in order for you to discuss your future potential with the company. Because the other problem, the other mistake some of you might make is you'll talk about a whole bunch of stuff that is not of even not even of relevance to the hiring manager or the hiring team, right? Yeah, you just start randomly talking about, oh, I can do this for you, I can do this, I can do this, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. You're talking about a whole bunch of stuff, and maybe some of that stuff might be relevant, but if you want to talk about relevant future potential, okay, if you want to take notes, you want to write this down, you want to talk about future relevant potential. Keyword there is relevant, folks. If you're not talking about relevant stuff, you might lose the attention of the hiring manager or the hiring team, right? Because you're talking about a whole bunch of stuff that maybe you're excited about, and hey, maybe I might be excited about it as well if I was listening to you. But if you really want to grab someone's attention, it's got to be relevant stuff. So throughout the interview conversation, and this is not something that happens at the beginning or the middle or the end, or it doesn't happen at some specific point. Understanding the hiring need, the hiring motivation, the problems, the challenges the hiring team is facing, this is something that takes place over throughout the interview. It's not something that happens at a specific point, right? So this is the first thing you got to understand is in understanding the hiring need, the hiring motivation, the problems, the challenges that they're facing at their organization or the team or the department or whatever. Like this is something you have to take steps in understanding throughout the conversation. And you do this through basically having a discussion throughout the interview where you're also asking your own questions to understand these aspects, right? Why are they looking to hire? What's going on with the project right now? What are the challenges they're facing? What are some of the setbacks they're facing? If you're not taking steps to understand that, you're not going to be able to understand, okay, how am I going to potentially help them in the future? Like these are things that you need to be able to tie in when you're presenting yourself as a high potential hire for this company, right? So that is tip number one. Now, tip number two is as you're strengthening your understanding of the hiring need or the hiring motivation, you have to be mentally identifying the required skills and knowledge required in order to achieve whatever end result they want you to achieve as a person in this role, right? So while you're understanding the hiring need, while you're understanding the project and the problems that they're facing, you got to be thinking, okay, based on this problem that they're experiencing, what are the relevant skills, knowledge, experiences that I have, that I bring to the table, that I've accomplished in the past, that I can help these folks out with at this organization, right? Because you got to talk about, of course, your practical ability, right? Because it's one thing for you to understand what's happening, what's going on, what's happening, what the details of the project, all that stuff. That is just one aspect of it, right? The other aspect is, let's get into the specifics, folks, right? You got to get into the specifics. What skills do they require for someone to resolve this? What knowledge does it require? What experiences does it require? What certifications? What qualifications? Whatever. Like you got to be taking note of these things, because that's going to help you when it comes to the part on selling them on you as a future potential, by the way, a strong future potential fit. Because ultimately that's what's going to help you tie in what you bring to the table with what you can potentially do at this organization, right? So, and just to give you a quick example of this, right? Because I just thought of a quick example. For example, let's say during the course of the interview, they ask you this typical question. Maybe not so typical for some of you, but let's say a typical question is, how do you deal with difficult stakeholders? Okay. Or how do you deal with difficult customers? Or how do you deal with difficult clients? Right. A pretty common question, right? Most of you have probably been asked this question. Now, after you provide the response to that question, whatever your response is, like this is an opportunity for you to, again, further strengthen your understanding of what's going on at the organization, right? So you might ask them after you finish delivering your response, you might ask the hiring manager or the interviewer, are you experiencing this right now? Like, are you experiencing challenges with difficult stakeholders or difficult customers right now? Right? Because what we want to do is we want to determine if this is something that they're experiencing right now. Because if it is, then that is something affecting their project or whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. And you got to assume that, hey, if they're asking me about difficult customers or difficult stakeholders, then that must be something important for someone to succeed in this role. So if they were to ask the question, hey, so how do you deal with difficult customers, difficult stakeholders? You provide your response, and then you should ask your own follow-up question, which is, are you experiencing this right now? Are you experiencing challenges with difficult stakeholders and difficult customers in your project right now? And then they're gonna say, yeah, I mean, that is something that we do experience as part of our day-to-day routine. And that's where you got to further probe and investigate, folks, right? And this is where you got to be like, okay, so how's that affecting your project? How's that delaying the results that you're looking for? What's that costing you in terms of lost, I don't know, whatever, time, productivity, I don't know, morale, whatever it is. Like, you got to probe and investigate. You got to really understand how this is affecting the organization, right? And that's where you can then further integrate how you can help them in the future, right? So then you can kind of transition into, oh, okay, I understand. So based on that, like, if I were in this role, what I would do specifically is X, Y, and Z in order to deal with these difficult customers, stakeholders, or clients, right? So you got to kind of implement this ability to sell them on your future potential by, first of all, like, just like I said, number one was understanding the problems, the challenges, the hiring need, the motivation. Second thing is the skills, the knowledge, and all that stuff. Because the skills and knowledge in this example is, you got to be good, obviously, to handle difficult stakeholders, difficult customers, difficult clients. You got to have good people skills. You got to have good stakeholder management skills. You got to have good problem solving ability. You got to have good conflict resolution ability. Like, these are all associated skills that they might not overtly mention, but you got to kind of gather that as you're understanding what exactly is going on here. And this is where you can be like, again, you can kind of put yourself in the equation as a future potential hire and be like, well, if I were to be in this role, this is this and this and this is what I would potentially do to help resolve this and move things forward. So that is tip number two. Tip number three is, and I kind of already kind of mentioned this, but you got to help the hiring team visualize how and what you're going to do to help them achieve the end goal of this project, or as a result of hiring you, right? Like, if you're not doing that, then again, you're kind of kind of depending on luck that they're going to kind of figure that out on their own. Like, you have to help them tie those two things together. Like, it's one thing for you to talk about what you've currently done in your current employer or your past employers. That's great, but you got to relate it directly to them, and you do this by, again, drawing those lines between what you bring to the table and your future potential, right? And I see some comments here. Let me just quickly get into the comments. We got Sneha in the house. Hey, Sneha, good to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got Olu Bunmi in the house. Thanks for tuning in, Olu Bunmi. Thanks so much for tuning in. We also got Peter in the house. Peter says, hi, Dean. So basically, you do not only tailor your CV cover letter to fit when applying, if you do so, but you need to tailor your presentation, talk, and interview as well as to fit the open and hidden needs of the organization. Yeah, pretty much, Peter. Right now, this might be more difficult to do on the resume because you can't really anticipate. I mean, unless it's a very, very customized job description. I mean, even then, like, the purpose of your resume is to pretty much show what you've done so far, and of course that in itself shows what you can do future in the future, potentially. But yeah, definitely at the interview, and also when you're presenting, that is something that you definitely want to incorporate, is what you can do for the future, right? Your future potential and all that, because that's very, very important. So yeah, definitely, Peter, I totally agree with you. So absolutely, that you got to implement this at your presentation, when you're interviewing, and when you're talking about what you can do and what you bring to the table. So absolutely, so totally agree with that, Peter. Thanks so much for your input there. Varsha Pancho says, hi, Dean, could you speak a little slow? Unfortunately not, Varsha. This is the way I speak. So unfortunately, if you can, I don't know, maybe when you watch the replay, watch it on YouTube. I think you can set the speed to slower. But this is how I talk, and unfortunately, that's not something I really change. But I appreciate you tuning in, Varsha. We got Vrunda Parikh in the house. Vrunda says, hi, Dean, happy Wednesday. Thank you for your live session. Whenever we appear for interview, until what time week should we wait for a response? Well, okay, so I'm going to get to your question after I finish talking about today's topic, Vrunda. So just hang tight. I will get to your question shortly, all right? So what I was getting at is point number three, folks, is you gotta actively take steps in helping the hiring team draw the conclusion as to, okay, this is a great candidate. They've done a lot of great things. They've accomplished a lot of great things. Now, how do you tie that in with what you can do for them at their organization? Well, that requires you to help them visualize your potential, right? And you do that by grasping a better idea of what's going on with them, what's happening with their project, what challenges they're facing, what problems they're facing, and all that stuff, and then showing them how what you can potentially do for them. And you can't show them that future potential if you're not taking steps in understanding again what challenges and problems that they're facing, and how you can specifically help them out if you were to be considered for the role and actually hired at the company. So again, the 3 steps, folks. Number one, you got to understand the hiring need and the hiring motivation, because if you're not doing that, the hiring need, the hiring motivation, the challenges, the problems that they're facing, if you're not doing that, then you're not going to be able to really sell them on your future potential at the organization. Second thing is, as you're understanding the hiring need, the hiring motivation, the problems, the challenges they're facing, as you're doing that, you got to take note of specific skills, experiences, knowledge that will be required for someone to succeed in the role, because that'll get you able to more effectively accomplish number 3, which is you got to help the hiring team visualize and persuade them on how you can specifically help them at their organization, right? And this is where you're going to provide specific examples on what you can do personally in relation to current challenges they're facing, current problems, current challenges. I gave you an example of them asking about how you deal with difficult stakeholders. Great opportunity for you to interject yourself into the equation right there, folks, right? So again, after providing your response, you could be like, well, is this something you're experiencing right now? Are you experiencing challenges with difficult stakeholders? Oh, really? What's going on? What's happening? How is that delaying the project? How is that preventing you from getting the outcome that you're looking to achieve? How is that affecting the rest of your team? How is that slowing other interacting teams on this project? Right? Like, these are great questions you can ask to better understand the hiring motivation. And after better understanding it, that's when you can go into, well, given the fact that you're experiencing these challenges with difficult stakeholders, if I were to be in this role, here's what I would specifically do. And then you talk about X, Y, and Z and all those things that you can specifically do in this project. So when you do that, folks, what's happening is you're allowing the hiring team right there on the spot at the interview, you're allowing them to actually visualize what it would be like to have you as part of the team, because you're talking about something that's directly relevant to them. So again, don't just talk about your past accomplishments, things you've done in the past, and things you've achieved in the past. Yes, you want to do that, but don't forget to talk about future potential. You want to make it directly relatable to the hiring team, because if you're able to do that, that's how they're going to, again, the visualization aspect is so important. You want them to visualize how you want them to right then and there visualize having you on their team. And you do that by relating to something that they're experiencing right then and there, right now, as it is in whatever project they're working on that requires someone with your skills, your knowledge, your expertise, right? So keep this in mind, folks. Hope these tips helped. And before I get into your questions in the comments, don't forget to hit like, and don't forget to share with your network as well, folks. Always appreciate that. And also, before I get into your questions in the comments, make sure you follow all my social channels as well. I post across, various social media platforms. So check out all my social media links at linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter, linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter. So make sure you check those out. All right. So again, now if you have any questions, feel free to put in the comments. I'm going to get to everyone's questions right now. So I believe we had a question from Baisali, if I remember correctly. So Baisali says, yeah, I'm from Toronto. How to negotiate salary in an interview? So my first tip in regards to this, Baisali, is salary negotiation begins way before the interview, right? So there's various aspects to the salary negotiation, but the first thing is you got to do your research, Baisali, right? Like, you got to research what is a common salary rate or salary range for someone with your skills, your knowledge, your expertise, and your seniority as well. Like, how many years you've been in the industry. Like, these are all multiple factors you got to take into consideration, right? And also, maybe you have some specific, very specific, specialized knowledge, right, that not everyone else in your industry has. So that might put you at even higher than the average salary. So look, there are multiple things, and this is something so important, because I see so many people make this mistake in not conducting research prior to their salary negotiations. So Bisali, my advice to you is, the most important thing is do your research. Now, one aspect of research you can incorporate is many major staffing agencies out there, they release an annual salary guide, which might be a good starting point for your research, which will help you figure out, okay, where do I stand on the salary band and the salary range? on average. Now again, those salary guides, I mean, don't take them as kind of like your strict 100% foolproof guide, because again, there might be other variables, right? Maybe again, maybe you have specific knowledge, maybe you have very specialized knowledge, maybe you have knowledge of something that that's high in demand, and a lot of people in your industry don't have. I mean, in those cases, you probably want to put yourself as higher than those salary ranges, right? So again, it's a good starting point, but again, I would say this is something so important, Bisali, is do your research. That is extremely important for your salary negotiations. If you don't do your research, you're kind of walking into your negotiations, kind of lost, right? Because you're not sure what your value is in the market, and what you can demand as someone in the market, right? So hope that helps, Bisali. Great question there. Also from Bisali is, I'm looking for an opportunity in IT. How will I get the opportunity? Is there any site? Yeah, so I mean, that's a very broad question, Bisali. I'm not sure if you're even asking what you're even asking there. How will I get the opportunity? Is there any site? I mean, yeah, there's plenty of sites, right? So like, you got to do your research, right? Like, how can I say this in a polite way? Like, don't expect people to spoon feed you everything, Bisali, right? Like, you shouldn't even be asking me this question. Like, you should know what the key websites are here in I think you're in Toronto. So yeah, I mean, Monster, LinkedIn, Indeed, like these are the most popular websites, and of course you got to go to the corporate websites of the companies that you're interested in applying for, careers pages, stuff like that, and of course staffing agencies, right? Like, folks, you gotta do your due diligence, folks, right? Like, you don't expect people to spoon feed you everything. Like, you got to do some research. Like, there's no excuse for any of us to not go on Google and type a simple inquiry. What are the best job search sites in Toronto? Like, that's a very simple thing you can Google on Google, right? Like, you got to take the initiative as well, right? So anyway, let's go on to the next question here. We got a question from, I think it was Vrunda. So Vrunda says, hi Dean, happy Wednesday. Thank you for your live session. You're most welcome, Vrunda. Appreciate you tuning in. Whenever we appear for interview, until what times, weeks should we wait for a response? When is it a red flag waiting for a response? Thank you in advance. So Vrunda, I'm not sure if you're asking asking about when, if you should follow up after an interview, or if you're asking if how long you should wait to follow up after applying for an interview. Like, whenever you until what time should we? Okay. So I guess this is you're asking for how long should you wait for a response. Okay, so Vrunda, I mean, this depends on multiple factors, right? I mean, how many stakeholders, how many decision makers are there? How many stakeholders are involved in the decision making process of the company? Is it just one person? Is it just a handful of people, or is it like multiple people? I mean, typically at larger organizations, there might be multiple individuals involved in making a final decision, right? So it's not just a matter of just whoever you met with. I mean, it may not entirely be up to them in making the decision to move you on to the next step of the process, or even making a final decision. So if there is multiple stakeholders involved, I mean, those are multiple people, multiple agendas, multiple perspectives. So and multiple schedules as well, right? Because sometimes sometimes the biggest problem is getting everyone to meet at the same time, so they can discuss feedback in regards to yourself. So there's multiple components here, right? Whereas maybe at a startup or a smaller size organization, maybe the person you met with, I mean, it comes down to them, right? It's just them making the decision. So based on that, I mean, you got to kind of exercise your judgment there, Vrunda, right? Like, if it's a small organization and the decision maker is the person you met, I mean, they should be able to figure out if they want to move ahead with you to the next step of the process, whatever that next step is, pretty soon. I would say within a week. Versus maybe at a larger organization, that it's not just one stakeholder, it's like multiple people. Maybe you met with a manager, but that they also got to meet with I don't know, a director, a vice president, maybe even a C-level executive, maybe a team lead, maybe a peer in the team, on the same team as you. That's multiple people, so that might take more time for them to make a final decision. So again, I would say, Vrunda, it depends on the context. It depends on how many people are involved in making a decision at the organization itself. And based on that, I mean, hey, keep showing interest, keep showing up, keep following up, because you have nothing to lose. But at the same time, keep applying for other opportunities, keep interviewing with other organizations as well. So Vrunda, hope that helps. Great question there. So Maha says, how to incorporate keywords in cover letter and resume. Also, cover letter should be different for every job application. Okay, so great question, Maha, right? Because look, keywords are very important, especially on resumes, because keywords are what recruiters use. Recruiters such as myself, this is what we use to kind of look for resumes, search for resumes, and differentiate between which resumes we want to be reaching out to, which ones we might want to pass on. So that comes down to, I would say, Maha, one of the best places to figure out which keywords you want to mention is simply analyzing the job description, right? The best thing would be probably having an actual conversation with, the recruiter or the hiring manager and asking them, hey, what are the key skills you're looking for in an ideal candidate? But I mean, in your case, Maha, and for most of you out there, you probably only have a job description to refer to first and foremost. So my advice to you, Maha, is analyze the job description, check out what are the key things that they're looking for in an ideal candidate, and you're going to see some patterns in terms of what's important to the person that they're looking for in this role, right? So make sure you do that. And hey, maybe take some notes. Maybe take notes and identify some of those keywords that you're noticing on the job description that are important for the role. And then out of those keywords, you got to figure out, hey, what are of these keywords, what are some of the stuff that I have experience with, that I have knowledge of, experience with, and that is the stuff you want to highlight on your resume, right? You want to talk about that stuff, you want to highlight that stuff, maybe further elaborate on that stuff. And the same thing goes for your cover letters as well, right? Now, on the cover letter, should it be different for every job application? I would say, and again, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on cover letters, Maha, because me personally as a recruiter, I don't even read the cover letter. I go straight to the resume. But that being said, if you are doing a cover letter, as much as possible, yes, I would say cater it to the specific company that you're creating the cover letter for. Otherwise, it's just going to come across as some, general template, and the person reading is not even going to, consider it seriously as well, right? But if someone is going to read your cover letter, if you want to get their attention, then you should cater it specific to the company that you're applying for. So hope that helps, Maha. Great question there. And let me see here. So Peter says, I guess Peter's providing a response to Vrunda. Peter says, once I applied for a position and it took 9 months for the company to invite me for the first interview, then nothing for 1.5 years. Then they invited me for a second round interview after a few after a few years. I'm still waiting for their reply. Yeah, you know what? It's crazy. It's ridiculous. And unfortunately, this does happen, right? I mean, it's crazy. Like, I don't know why some organizations do this, but it definitely does happen, right? So, but that being said, this is, of course, I think in a pretty extreme example where Peter's talking about a situation where it's taking like a few years for them to conduct their interview cycle. But sometimes, like, you got to follow up, right? If you're interested in the opportunity, if you feel that you're a strong fit for the role, if you're highly motivated to want to join this organization, I'd say what do you have to lose by staying in touch, following up, and maintaining communication, folks? I mean, who knows what's going on at the organization, right? They might have some stuff going on at the company that they're not even allowed to talk about. Maybe they've just got acquired by another company. Maybe they acquired another company. Maybe someone higher up got fired or replaced. Maybe they're I don't know, they had some budgetary constraints or restrictions or some changes there. I mean, there could be a whole bunch of stuff, folks. I mean, the main thing is don't let it get to your ego. Don't get hurt thinking it's about you. I mean, a lot of times it could have nothing to do with you. It could be something internal going on at the organization. What you got to do is maintain your level of interest, maintain communication, keep putting yourself out there. Whoever your point of contact is, maintain communication with them, right? So that whatever it is that's going on with them, whenever they figure that out, whenever it's all settled and done, you want to be the first person that they think about, so that when they're ready to revisit the hiring process, they're like, oh yeah, Vrunda, she's been keeping in touch with us. Things have settled in here. Let's get the conversation started back up again, right? Vrunda says, oh, that's strange. Thank you for sharing your insights. I waited for 15 working days and then set up a follow-up email. Again, no responses. It the past. Should I wait? Was my concern. Yeah, I mean, my opinion, Vrunda, is, maybe don't put all your hopes on this company. Keep applying, keep interviewing with other companies. But if you really like this company, if you really feel motivated and you feel like it's a great organization, I'd say don't give up. Even if it's 15 days, don't give up. Like, there are people I've given this advice to where they kept following up after a couple of months. Like, I remember someone I gave this advice to, they're like, Dean, but I really like this company. Then I was like, okay, then don't give up. Like, keep following up, keep in touch. Whoever your point of contact is, keep following up, keep showing interest, keep letting them know you're highly interested. And what they told me was, like, 7 or 8 months later, their point of contact got back to them, apologized, and let them know that they had some internal things going on at the organization that they could not speak about. And then they reignited the interview process, and they interviewed this person who was following up because they kept in touch, and ultimately they ended up getting the job, right? Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen all the time, but I'm saying, folks, don't get all, don't get your ego hurt and think that, oh my god, they're being so rude, they're not responding, they're not getting feedback and stuff like that. I mean, it's one thing if they're being rude and unprofessional, but I mean, why give up? Like, why are a lot of you folks are giving up way too soon? How do you and I know if something's going on at this company? How do we know, folks? We don't know, right? So keep showing interest. If you feel that you're the person for this role, if you love this company, if you're excited about this company, do not give up. Keep showing interest, maintain communication, and whatever is going on at this company, after a few weeks or after a few months, when they figure things out and everything's good and they're ready to revisit the hiring process, why would you not want to be the first person that they think about? Quit letting your ego get in the way, folks, right? That's the point I'm trying to make here. And then Bruna says, what if the interviewer, without hearing my experience, which I described about in my introduction itself, rather fires the list of questions that he or she prepared for a senior level experienced candidate, whereas I'm having around entry level experience, for example, how to deal with this during the interview? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why they would do that, Brunda. I mean, obviously, if they've actually looked at your resume or your LinkedIn profile, they would probably know you're an entry level person, and they're asking you questions for a senior level experienced candidate, whereas you're having, yeah, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure why that would be happening unless there's a misunderstanding and they thought you were a senior level person. I mean, just be upfront about it in that case, right? Just let them know, hey, I'm an entry level person, like, such and such and such is my level of experience. Are you in fact looking for an entry level person, or are you looking for a senior level person? Because it sounds like from the questions you're asking, you seem to be looking for more of a senior level person. Like, just be upfront, right? I mean, I've personally, I've never really heard of this happening, Brunda, so I'm not sure exactly what's happening there. But oftentimes, folks, full transparency is the best way to go. If you notice something, just put it out there. Just be like, hey, like if I was in this situation, I would be like, hey, it sounds like you're asking questions that are more catered to someone at a senior level. And just to be upfront with you, and I'm sure you noticed on my resume, I'm more of an entry level person. So in regards to this position, are you interviewing for someone entry level or mid level or senior level? Like what is your goal at this moment? As an interviewer, as a hiring manager, at least open up the conversation there. And hey, they might say, oh yeah, well, we're actually looking to hire a senior level person. In which case, I'd be thinking, this person has lost their mind. Like, why would they interview me? Because I'm an entry level person, right? And I would probably follow up and ask them, oh, okay, great. You're looking for a senior level person. That's great. So what caught your attention about my resume? That because clearly I'm an entry level person. What caught your attention about my resume that made you want to schedule an interview with me, right? And at least you open up the conversation there, and you can actually have a discussion as to why they actually wanted to interview you, right? Because maybe it's something that they noticed on your resume or something else. So hey, hope that helps, Frunda, and thanks for your great questions and comments. We got Rachel in the house. Shout out to Rachel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Rachel says, hi, Dean, any advice on Canadians wanting to apply for remote jobs in the US? Yeah, so Rachel, I mean, look, I don't have much experience in regards to this because I mostly recruit in Canada. But from a strategic standpoint, I would say go after people, connect, start networking with recruiters, hiring managers, and companies and organizations that are based out of the US. I would say that is probably one of the best starting points. And also another thing is, like, I'm not sure if you're currently employed right now, but if you are working at a larger company and that company has a presence in the US, I would say it's a great, maybe you can, set up a conversation with, I don't know, maybe your manager or I don't know, whoever your point of contact is at your existing company, and inquire about projects that are going on in the US. That might be a great way for you to maybe transition into working on projects in the US. And I think right now, Rachel, will probably come down to more of a networking thing. So identify companies, organizations, recruiters, staffing agencies in the US. I hear about a lot of companies in the US that are very open to hiring Canadians remotely, right? So I would say it comes down to kind of a networking thing right now, Rachel. So identify people that you can connect with that might be very interested in considering people from Canada. So that would be my advice to you. Hope that helps, Rachel. Thanks so much for your question. Peter says, tell them if they handle you as a senior level person, give you a senior level salary. Hey, I totally agree with that. Vrunda says, thank you, Dean. Hey, no worries, Vrunda. Appreciate your questions and comments for today. By the way, Vrunda, I definitely because you asked a great question and you were very very interactive on today's session. Send me a message after the session. I want to send you my PDF, how to run recruiters through your resume. This is a PDF where I share a script on how you can run recruiters through your resume that should help you with your conversations with recruiters. So just send me a message after the session and just remind me and I'll send you a copy of that PDF. So appreciate your interactions today on the stream. Arjun says, hello, Dean. Hey, Arjun, good to see you here. And thanks for tuning in on YouTube. And Rachel says, okay, thanks. Hey, no worries, Rachel. So appreciate appreciate everyone's interactions today. Appreciate the great questions today. And remember, mark your calendars, folks. Every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, I'm right here to help you folks out with job search tips, advice, and strategies. And if there's any topics you want me to cover in next week's segment, which is Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, drop it in the comments, folks. Any particular topics you want me to cover, let me know. I'm always looking for new ideas and new areas, the areas that you want me to cover. And I try to keep it as relevant as possible. All right. So make sure you share that in the comments. And hey, I appreciate everyone tuning in today. And thank you so much for everyone's likes and shares and all that stuff. Make sure you hit like and make sure you share as well. And I'll see you again next week, folks. Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. So mark your calendars. And most of all, folks, don't give up. Stay positive, keep taking action, don't give up, and keep pushing through. All right? I'll see you folks soon, and I'll see you around next time. Have a fantastic week.